In today's talk, I'll focus on a particular research topic. Nowadays, people are working in this particular area. But before going to that particular area, I will introduce from the fundamental aspects of cloud computing, right? So, what is the previous algorithms developed in cloud computing? Then I will tell you what people are working in nowadays, so that you will able to understand what kind of work a BTech student or MTech student or PhD student or as a faculty member we can do in the area of cloud computing. So as the name suggests here, energy efficient. So energy efficient than cloud computing, right? So in energy efficiency means what about the energy consumed by different cloud service provider, basically the different devices, okay, or ICT devices or data centers or virtual machine or physical machine, whatever energy consumed by these things, okay, we have to minimize it. That is the basic objective of this particular talk. So we'll see how we'll assign the user applications to cloud to different to the cloud data centers or virtual machines, okay, or the physical machine, so that the energy consumption will be less. So that is the objective of this particular talk. So now this is my outline. Okay, I'll focus on why we need energy efficient cloud computing. Then followed by I will tell you some of the energy based algorithm. Later we renamed this energy based algorithm as non-renewable energy based algorithm, because the resources whatever used by energy efficient algorithm, that is not renewable. That's why I named it by non-renewable energy based algorithm. Finally, I will tell you what are the research problems associated with renewable energy based algorithm, which is the need of the hour. Then I will tell you about a set of references, those who are interested to work in this particular area, so they can focus on these, they refer these particular papers and carry out their work. Okay. Now, before going to this particular talk, let me tell a informal example so that you will overall know that why we need energy efficient cloud computing, right? So now, just see, uh, there is two machine. Let's say this is my first machine, right? Okay, this is my second machine. Two machines are there, right? So assume that each machine can be utilized as 100, right? Means the utilization of each machine is 100%, right? You can utilize both machine up to 100%, right? So I have two user application, right? One user application suppose require 40, right? Let me write here. It is not coming clearly. Okay. So I have two computer system, right? So both system can be utilized, means the maximum utilization is 100%, right? Now I have two user application which can make these resources utilization up to, let's say, one application make utilization of 40%. Another application is there which can utilize 50% of the resources. So these are the raw values, okay? Don't go through these values. Just two assumptions I have taken. Two machines are there. Both machine can be busy for 100% of utilization. I have two application, let's say user application 1, another user application 2, right? User 1 application you assign to the first machine. Let's say I am writing machine 1, another I am writing machine 2. If you assign user 1 to machine 1 or machine 2, it will use 40% of the resources. Means out of 100%, it will take 40% of the resources. Similarly, if you will assign to either machine 1 or machine 2, it will utilize 50% of the resources, right? As you know that the sum of these two user application is 90%, right? If you see sum is 90%, right? So total utilization is possible in machine 1 and machine 2 is 100% each, right? That means user 1, user 2 can be assigned to machine 1. At the same time, if it is not possible in machine 1 due to some other constraint, I can assign also U1, U2 to the machine 2, right? Means both machines are capable of holding user 1, user 2. So what may be the possibility? If you see first possibility, I am assigning 40% here, right? right? Another 50% here, right? 40% means user 1 to machine 1, user 2 to machine 2. This is one of the solution. Another solution one people can say, suppose I'm writing here, okay. So one person will say that I will use 90% of the resource, 90% here. 90% means user 1 and user 2 both I'll assign to machine 1 and I will switch off the machine 2, right? Because machine 2 currently we are handling only 2 user application, so machine 2 is not required. So that is one of the solutions. So basically the first few slides are based upon this particular example, right? So which solution is better? Can anybody say? At least one participant. This is your solution 1. I'm writing solution 1 in which I have assigned 40% to means user 1 to machine 1 and 50% to machine 2. In the solution 2, both user 1 application 1 and user application 2 is assigned to machine 1 and machine 2 is put in the switch off mode. Can anybody say which one is better, S1 or S2?
Suggestion S2, sir.
S2 is better, okay. S2 is better, right? Okay. Okay. So before saying S1 is better, so initially I will say both solutions are better, right? Based upon what model you are taking, you can say S1 is better or S2 is better. Obviously, without going to the model, anybody can say that S2 is better, S1 is not better. But once you go through the model, you will say S1 is better if the model is like this, S2 is better if the model is like this, right? So it is purely depends upon what kind of analysis we have done on the data center, right? So that we will see in this particular lecture, right? And if time permit, I will tell you whatever the research areas going on in this particular domain. Now, coming to this example, right? This introduction part, I'll tell you. First, you have to estimate the how to utilize the resources, right? Whatever resources we are using, like you have seen in the previous example, one case solution 1 says that you use 2 resources. Solution 2 says that we are using only 1 resources, right? This is the difference between 2 different solutions. One is using 2 resources, another is using a single resources, right? So here our major concern in the energy efficient cloud computing is how to utilize the resources. Means one resource may be utilized for 10% of time, one resource may be utilized for 20% of time, another may be 30% of time. Is it better? Or we can combine into a single machine and that machine will be overloaded and other machine will be put in the switch off mode. So that we'll discuss what are the possible solutions suggested by various researchers that we'll discuss, right? So this is about how to utilize the resources, and basically our objective, you assign the user application in such a manner that power or energy consumption should be reduced or as minimum as possible, right? That is our objective. So one of the studies, okay, I have given the citation, you can refer to that particular paper if you are interested to carry out your work in this particular domain, right? So one one very good researcher, Professor Albert Jomaya, is from Australia. He suggested that energy consumption varies according to CPU utilization. Try to understand, just like a linear curve, if you see, right? Suppose I am taking, I'll show you the curve later. So let it be, this is my CPU utilization. I am in x-axis, I am taking CPU utilization, right? CPU utilization may be 0%. Like if I want to know the utilization of your machine, what you are doing? If you press Control Alt Delete from your computer system, so there is a processor. So let me show you so that it is more clear. If you press Control Alt Delete, right? You start your task manager, right? You go to performance. In this performance, what you are saying, how much CPU you are using or how much memory you are using, that it is showing, right? So 19%, 25%. Similarly, you assume that data center having more than many physical machines. Each physical machine or each virtual machine, we are monitoring their usage of CPU and usage of memory. So what this analysis is saying, that whenever you are taking CPU utilization in the x-axis, okay, CPU utilization starts from 0% to 100%, and this side you are taking power consumption, right? This side CPU utilization in x-axis, and y-axis you are taking energy consumption, or you can say power consumption, right? Whatever maybe you take energy consumption, right? So starting from 0 watt or whatever the unit is there, power is, if you're taking power, this is 0 watt to let's say 200 watt or something like that. If you see what they are suggesting, what the statement says, energy consumption varies with respect to CPU utilization. Means if it is 0, energy consumption, power consumption is 0, and it is a linear curve. Almost it is a, if you see this particular graph is a linear curve. That means 10% whatever power is consumed, okay, energy or power, whatever power is consumed at 10% of utilization. If you go for 20%, right? If you go for, this is 10%. If you go for 20%, so more or less this value is doubled, right? 10 means 10 is x means 10% utilization, we are consuming x power, means 20% utilization means we are consuming 2x power. It may be slightly vary, but almost it is equal to 2x power. Similarly, if I will ask what is 70, then you will say 7x, right? So earlier analysis says that it varies with respect to CPU utilization, and higher CPU utilization means let's say 100 is highest, right? So it is nothing but 10x. Okay, if not 10x, it is let's say 11x or 9x, something like that, right? So CPU utilization usually implies the greater energy consumption. If your utilization is increased, then utilization is go on increasing, then your energy consumption is also increasing, right? And you can estimate this thing, x and 2x, 7x, 10x. Okay, these values you can analyze, right? Or you can calculate, right? So this is the earlier analysis. Whenever if you see long back in 2012 or 2014, whatever algorithms are developed, these algorithms focus on that this scale is a linear one, right? If you estimate 10%, then you can predict for 70%, 80%, 90%, or 100%. So now come to the next slide, right? Why we need this energy consumption, right? Because nowadays you know that most of the organizations are moving towards the cloud, right? Each and every organization, whether it is a small organization or big organization, all are interested to go for cloud because of its characteristics. Whatever characteristics are there in the cloud computing, they want to utilize these characteristics. Maybe reliability, maybe availability, maybe upfront commitment. Whatever characteristics are there, based upon these characteristics, many organizations are heading towards cloud. See, whatever resources you have, right? If you see whatever resources you have, for example, you consider our Gmail, right? Gmail is also having a limitation, right? We can go up to 15 GB, not more than that. Once you reach close to 15 GB, Gmail will be alert you, right? That you have to buy some storage space, right? Similarly, whatever infrastructure, whatever physical machines, whatever data centers are there, they are not having infinite capacity. Try to understand this word. They don't have infinite capacity. None of the data center having infinite capacity. All are having finite capacity. But we are not reaching to that particular point. That's why people start saying we have infinite number of resources. Right? Try to understand. This is a very important point. Everything in the world is finite. Nothing is called infinite. Only thing, for example, in a small child case. Okay. In a small newborn baby, okay, let's say 2-year or 3-year baby, so he can recognize only the number from 1 to 10. So for him 11 is a infinite number, right? Because 11 we cannot reach. Similarly, whatever resources cloud service providers are having, right, or data centers having the resources, so that much resources we do not require that much resources. We cannot reach to that particular point. That's why every cloud service providers are claiming that they having infinite number of resources. But practically, if you go, everybody is having finite number of resources, right? So what is the solution? If we have finite number of solution, if we have finite number of resources, there is two solutions. One solution is I will manage all the applications, whatever application is coming in my finite number of resources, right? I have, let's say, 10 data centers. My user application, let's say, having 1000 applications. Let me write it is more clear so that you can visualize. So let there is a 1000 user application. These are rough examples. Okay, it may not be equal to our real life examples. So we have 1000 user applications. I have 10 data centers. Now the user request is increased to 1200. Right, I have 1200 user application. What I'll do, I will try to manage this 1200 with these 10 data centers. How I'll manage? I can manage by applying a appropriate resource management strategy. If you apply a proper resource management strategy or load balancing policy, you can say with 10 resources, it is sufficient to manage the 1200 applications. Another solution is I will increase the number of data centers to, let's say, 12 or 11 or 12. Okay, I am taking a rough number 12. Then also my problem is solved. So in this case, this is economical, right? I am not increasing my infrastructure. Rather than increasing my infrastructure, I am building a resource management strategy. That resource management strategy will help me to manage these applications in a very nice way, right? That's why to fully utilize the cloud resources, cloud service providers are deploying several customer applications without major concern of energy consumption. So obviously what happened in these 10 data center, let's say the average utilization is 67%, right? Once you are deploying 1000 application in 10 data center, the utilization is 67%. So once you deploy another 200 applications, mean total of 1200 application, what will happen? Definitely the utilization will increase. Let's say the utilization is increased to 75%, right? So there is an increase in the utilization, right? That's why cloud providers are in early stage. What they are trying to do, they want to increase the resources without any major focus on energy consumption, because they are paying, okay, whatever resources are using, whatever power is consumed, okay, or energy is consumed, what we are doing, they are going to pay for it, right? So they are not focusing on what will be happen to our environment, right? Because carbon dioxide is generated while running a particular data center, cooling is required. Such effect is not observed in the initial phase of the cloud computing, right? So they want the value should be close to 100%, right? Without thinking that the resource may be overloaded or the resource may be crashed or something like that. Initial stage, they are not focusing on this, right? They are only deploying the application. They want to achieve a utilization value which is close to 100%, right? Maybe 90%, maybe 95%, right? That's why energy consumption is not given priority in the initial stage, right? So obviously you will achieve what? High performance, right? If you are increasing the resources with the minimum number of, let's say, 10 data center, obviously your performance will increase, right? Let's say tomorrow another 200 application is coming, it is increased to 1400 application. Again, you are managing with only 10 data center. Obviously the utilization value will increase and your high performance is achieved. But what about energy consumption? Energy consumption drastically increase. So that is the main motivation why people are interested in proposing energy efficient based algorithm. So a typical example, if you see whatever energy required for a single data center, it is same as the energy consumed by 25,000 householders. So in a village, if you assume that 25,000 householders are there, whatever energy is required for these 25,000 householders, the same energy is required to run a particular data center, right? So imagine how much energy is required to run a particular data center. Later I will tell you how many data centers are there in all over the world, but for this time being, you assume that each data center, whatever energy is consumed, that is the same as 25,000 householder. So this energy required is very high. And another constant you can see here, in order to run a particular data center, carbon dioxide is generated, right? So the amount of carbon dioxide emit from a particular data center in 2008, and if you see the analysis of 2020, it will increase in a quadruple, right? So that's why we have to focus on our environment and we have to see how we can run a data center with minimum energy or power. So that is the objective, that is the main motivation of going for this particular energy efficient based algorithm. Similarly, another analysis, if you see in a research report given in the US, they are saying whatever ICT equipments we are using, ICT equipments means our smartphone is also a ICT equipment, right? Smart TV, whatever things we are using, they are called ICT equipments. Tablet, okay, iPad, whatever we are using, these are called ICT equipments. So these ICT equipments, okay, it is roughly taking 8% of the total energy consumption. Okay, if you consider total energy consumption is 100%, so ICT equipment is responsible for 8%. And as people are having two smartphones, many people are using many things, right? So many smart devices, smart TV we are using, okay, many smart things are we are using. So it is expected that within a decade, within a span of 10 years, it will increase to 50%. That's why energy consumption has major role. So one of the popular international company, multinational company, that is called Gartner. Maybe Dr. Gupta introduced in your basic lecture, right? So this Gartner cycle, okay, there is a Gartner hype cycle. Gartner is a ICT R&D company or research and advisory company. So Gartner suggests that this ICT equipment is responsible for 2% of the global carbon dioxide emission in 2007. Now these values are changed because it is a very old data, right? Because it is required to predict the future data, right? So ICT equipments are also responsible for 2% responsible for global carbon dioxide emission in 2007. So these are the few motivations in which we have to see how we will minimize our energy. Okay. So cloud computing can increase the utilization. Obviously, previously what happened? People are using their computation. Okay, X company is using its own infrastructure. Y company is using its own infrastructure. Z company is using his own infrastructure. Nowadays, what happened? Many companies are using the infrastructure provided by a cloud service provider. So it is a very good solution, right? If they are getting these resources from a cloud service provider, they will not spend any money in their infrastructure, right? And energy consumption is not increased in that in energy consumption and management of the resources. These are not required in the cloud user end, but cloud service provider has to manage this thing. So if you see this one with cloud computing, the energy consumption is reduced, right? It is reduced in comparison if a person is individually doing a particular thing and cloud service provider is doing for others. So obviously the energy consumption is reduced, but still whatever energy is required for a cloud service provider to run its infrastructure, right? So it is also not a small thing, right? That's why here we say cloud computing can increase the utilization of the resources, hence reduce the number of IT equipment, right? X company needs infrastructure, Y company needs, Z company needs. They do not require any IT hardware infrastructure or equipment. Okay, they will simply switch on to cloud and they will subscribe the various resources, right? So it can potentially reduce the global carbon dioxide emission, right? Obviously, it will reduce the carbon dioxide emission. But what we are now concentrating, we are concentrating on whatever resource cloud computing is using, how to minimize that. Try to understand. First system is our manual system, right? In manual system, each and every person are using their own infrastructure. So they are moving to our cloud system so that number of IT hardware equipment is reduced, right? But this is good. Okay, coming from manual system to your own infrastructure to cloud infrastructure, the energy consumption is reduced. But we want to optimize whatever resources available in the cloud. Don't be misunderstood this concept. Previously, people are using their own infrastructure. Now they are using the cloud infrastructure. So obviously there is an improvement in the energy. But what we want to again minimize whatever the resources used in the cloud computing, right? So that data center resources we have to minimize. That is the need of this particular topic, right? So energy consumption of a processor, if you calculate, is approximately proportional to the processor frequency. Each processor has a frequency, as you have seen in the microprocessor. Different microprocessors are having their frequency and square of the processor voltage, right? So if you calculate, then only you can calculate the energy consumption. So with respect to various research paper, the energy consumption formula varies. I will tell you some formula so that you can easily calculate if you are developing algorithms for energy efficient cloud computing. Now, so in the introduction class, you have seen something called SLA, right? Service level agreement. So service level agreement is a contract or an agreement between a cloud service provider and a cloud consumer or cloud user. So what happened in energy efficient cloud computing? So they have considered this SLA level into, they have considered n number of SLA level, right? Okay, so whenever a user is deploying a particular application, user has to choose one of the SLA level, right? That's why they have considered here whatever SLA level is selected by a particular user, that should be in the range of 0 to n minus 1. Means we are giving a particular range, right? You have to select one of the service level agreement level. So why you are choosing a particular service level? Because based upon that service level, we will provide you the resources. So if you are selecting the lower SLA level means the value close to 0, then cloud service provider will give you few resources, right? Similarly, you have to pay few cost, okay, very less cost, not a large amount, right? Fewer resources in the cloud. So obviously, if you are using fewer resources, then energy consumption is reduced, right? Somebody is using 5 resources, you are using 10 resources. So obviously, 10 resources is more than 5. So you are consuming more energy in comparison to the previous person, right? So another basic SLA level is the amount of resources or VMs. It may be considered as a virtual machine. It may be considered as a physical machine as well. But what happens whenever you are choosing the higher level of SLA, means the value close to n minus 1, then number of virtual machines required is more. So energy consumption is also increased, right? So based upon that, you have to select the SLA level and what kind of application you are deploying, that also depends, right? Some applications are there which require more resources. You are bound to use higher SLA level, right? For example, if you see this table, you will understand that if you are selecting 0 level, so maximum you can create 1 to 200 virtual machine in a data center. If you are choosing 1, then the virtual machine varies from 201 to 400. Similarly, it will so on, right? So up to this is 1000. Sorry, you correct it, right? So this is SLA level 4 means you will get 801 number of virtual machine to 1000. So based upon your application, you have to predict or you have to give freedom to the cloud service provider. So on behalf of this, cloud service provider will select one of the resource level, SLA level for you in order to execute your application. Now, coming to the job submission. Now I am submitting a job. So I am viewing the user application, whatever user application you are deploying. So I am viewing it a job submission or a user request submission, right? So in order to submit the job, many authors suggested, okay, many research papers suggested that you have to specify what is your minimum frequency and what is the maximum frequency required, right? So a job is always given in the form of minimum and maximum amount of resources in frequency, maybe megahertz, maybe gigahertz, maybe hertz, right? That depends upon your whatever unit you are following, right? So each and every job, whenever you are submitting, you have to first specify what is your minimum frequency, what is your maximum frequency. So if all servers cannot satisfy the requirement, for example, whatever the minimum frequency you are giving, whatever the maximum frequency you are giving, whatever resources available in the data center, they are not able to satisfy this minimum frequency and maximum frequency. So what you will do? You have to power on another server, okay? Another server which is not started till now, you have to power on that server such that that particular server can handle this minimum frequency and maximum frequency as specified by a user, right? That is one of the case. I will tell you an example so that this idea is more clear. So this is based upon two inequalities. Here we have considered two inequalities. What it is saying, in order to hold a particular job, whatever servers you are using, that server minimum frequency. So in job case, you have a minimum frequency, okay, and you have a maximum frequency, right? Similarly, each server is holding, okay, server case is holding a minimum frequency and maximum frequency. So how a server will capture your job, whether a server can handle a particular job or not, how to decide, that is based upon these two inequalities. So what is saying, server frequency maximum, sorry, server's minimum frequency should be greater than equal to the job's minimum frequency. So if your minimum frequency is 100, if maximum minimum frequency of a particular server is 200, then that first inequality is satisfied, right? So server minimum frequency should be greater than equal to minimum frequency of the job. That is the first case. Second case is maximum frequency of a server should be less than equal to maximum frequency of a job Okay, and it also less than equal to the same part, that is the maximum frequency of a server with another request alpha. Alpha is just like you can consider an additional quantity of the minimum of frequency. So for example, if you see here, for example, server maximum frequency is 500, right? Okay, and jobs frequencies are what? Jobs frequency is, let's say, 600. So now you can say this particular condition is satisfied, right? Server is 500 less than equal to your 600. That's why that job satisfies the two inequality. If it is satisfying two inequality, then only that particular job can be assigned to that particular server. Otherwise, it is not possible to assign to the particular server, right? So first inequality and second inequality we have discussed. Let us take an example so that you will understand this thing. So for example, in a job case, we consider the minimum frequency of a particular job is 100. Maximum frequency of a particular job is 500. So you have a set of servers or a set of virtual machines you can consider, right? Their minimum frequency and maximum frequency is given to you. So minimum frequency required for a particular job is 100. Maximum frequency required for that particular job is 500. Now, if you see 3 and 4, okay, so this, the minimum frequency of our job is 100. Minimum frequency of the server is 100. So 100 is less than equal to 100. 100 is greater than equal to 100. So it is satisfying our minimum first inequality. Similarly, here 100 is greater than 100. So it is also satisfying your first inequality. So here it is also satisfying your 100 is your first inequality. 150 it is greater, it is also satisfying. 150 is satisfying, another 150 is satisfying. 200 is satisfying, another is 200 satisfying. So except the server number 1 and 2, all are satisfying your first inequality. But what about the second inequality? Because I told you, you have to satisfy both inequality in order to dispatch a particular job to a particular data center. So if you see, in order to satisfy that, 500 is the maximum frequency. So this frequency, a server's minimum frequency should be less than equal to your job's frequency, job's maximum frequency. If you see that this 300, 350, another is 400, 450, and 500. So these are satisfied because these values are below 500, which satisfy your second inequality. So in order to say that a particular job is satisfying in a particular data center server, so what you have to see, we have to satisfy in both criteria. If you see in both criteria, the server number 3, server number 4, server number 6, server number 7, and server number 9 satisfies our condition. So out of these 5, we have to select one using a resource management approach to submit our job to a particular server. Okay. Now come to a very important concept, right? If, as you can see here, let me zoom my screen so that you will clearly understand. Okay, see here we have different clusters, right? Maybe Dr. Gupta introduced you in the basic section what is the difference between cluster, grid, and cloud computing. If you see a cluster, in cluster all the computers are having same configuration. Same configuration means one, if you take a 2 member in a particular cluster, just assume that we have a lab in our department. In that lab we have 30 computer systems. These 30 computer systems are having same configuration. Same configuration means their processor is same, okay, whatever processors they're same, and their operating system is same. Let's say their RAM is same, right? Their operating system bit is same, everything is same. So that can be considered as a cluster because clusters are homogeneous in nature. Homogeneous means they are having same characteristics. So here if you consider such type of cluster, we have considered here. I have considered a cluster A, right? And cluster B and cluster C, and another is, let's say, cluster X, right? X number of clusters are there. So we call it a virtual cluster because this is available, this is not available in the cloud user end. It is available in the cloud service provider end, or you can say data center. That's why you renamed as a virtual cluster, right? So as you know, in the data center, we have number of physical machines, right? And each and every physical machine, like here you can see there is a physical machine which can create multiple virtual machine based upon the requirement of a particular user. So I am creating number of virtual machine by the help of our physical machine. So whatever resources taken by these virtual machines are part of these physical machines, right? So similarly, we have several virtual clusters, right? And they are connected to a particular cloud service provider. That cloud service provider may provide storage as a service, database as a service, or as you have seen, infrastructure, platform, and software as a service, right? So why we divided into the virtual cluster? We have divided into the virtual cluster in order to efficiently monitor them, right? So it may happen that sometimes due to some natural calamity or due to some problem, one virtual cluster may crash. So it will not affect to some other virtual cluster, right? That's why we have separated them in the form of virtual cluster, or in order to uplink or downlink the things, we can use these virtual clusters, right? So what is the concept here? The concept says that whenever there is a scarcity of resources in a particular virtual cluster, so whatever resources available in the virtual cluster A, let all the resources are consumed, right? All the resources are assigned to some user. So what virtual cluster A will do? Virtual cluster A can request to virtual cluster B. Virtual cluster A can request to virtual cluster C. Virtual cluster A can request to virtual cluster X or any virtual cluster, right? So we assume that whenever you are communicating within this virtual cluster, okay, so you will not pay the communication cost. For example, this virtual machine is connecting with this virtual machine. As they are present in the same cluster, they will not pay any communication cost, right? Just we are traveling from New Delhi to, let's say, Noida, right? So we will not pay cost because they are belongs to a single cluster. So this is the assumption, right? And if it is not satisfied, if whatever the resources available in the virtual cluster A, let's say all the resources are consumed, okay, all the resources are used. So what you have to do? You have to request to some other virtual cluster. So you have to see the bandwidth restriction, and you have to also incur some communication cost. So if you see in the right side diagram, here we have given a matrix that is called as a bandwidth matrix. If you see virtual cluster A to virtual cluster A, the communication bandwidth is not specified. But whenever a virtual cluster A to virtual cluster B you are communicating, you have to pay some cost because you are using the bandwidth, right? For example, 250 MB per second you can transfer from virtual cluster A to virtual cluster B. So this is a bandwidth matrix in order to transfer from one virtual cluster to another virtual cluster. Now, this is based upon a particular research model, right? In this research model, if you see, shows that cloud system that consists of several virtual clusters. As you can see, we have considered X number of virtual cluster in this particular diagram. Okay, and each virtual cluster having a limited number of virtual machines, and these virtual machines are taking the resources of the physical machine. So without losing any generality, we have taken an assumption that VMs are used as a basic unit to execute a particular task. And the percentage of CPU utilization is used to judge whether a VM is enough resources available for a service or not. Like I told you, each and every resources can be utilized up to 100%, right? So if a value is close to 100%, then you can say the resource is fully utilized. If the value is close to 0, then you can say the resource is not utilized. That's why we have considered the percentage of the CPU utilization in order to decide whether a particular virtual machine is loaded with the user application or not. That you have to decide. So here we have considered the network bandwidth that we already discussed, that I considered whenever you are communicating from one virtual cluster to another virtual cluster, you have to consider some communication overhead in the form of network bandwidth, maybe 100 MB per second or 1 gigabits per second, that you have to decide. Now let us take a small example so that whatever I have discussed till now you will understand, right? Let us consider that whatever the user applications are submitted by the cloud user, let it be called as a task, right? The users are submitting tasks to the cloud service provider. So each and every task can be represented in the form of a set of attributes. What is the meaning of set of attribute? Each task, whenever is submitted to a particular cloud service provider, it is assigned with a ID, right? Task ID. or VMID, right? And we have to note down the arrival time of the task and processing time, how much processing time required for that particular task, what is the data size in that particular task, and how much utilization, CPU utilization it can incur. So this you have to predict, right? And based on that, you have to write some utilization value, right? So in this particular model, what you have to see? You have to see two things: utilization of the CPUs and utilization of the task in order to apply this particular research model. To see this example, before going to this example, this we already discussed. I told you a set of we have a CPU utilization from 0% to 100%, and this is the power consumption. So if you see, power consumption is 0% to 10%. If you focus, power consumption is in between 70 watt to 80 watt, right? Whenever you are moving from 10% to 20 watt, it is between 80% to 90%. So more or less, this curve is linear one, right? Means you can say whatever energy consumed in this particular level, it is doubled, okay, or some additional quantity plus 10 watt we are adding, so that we can predict how much energy consumption will be power is required if the utilization is in between 90% to 100%, right? So here we are using a well established energy consumption model which shows the relationship between the CPU utilization and energy consumption or power consumption is a linear one. Many models suggested it is a linear one, but another paper suggests that it may not be a linear one, because as you know that if you are running a big application in your computer, right, or in your laptop also, if you see, suppose you are not using any your computer system, right, or laptop or your mobile phone, so you are not using anything, just in a standby mode, it is also drawing some power. But whenever you are using, you are running some applications in your particular computer or mobile or any laptop or any tablet, the energy consumption is drastically increased, right? So if you see particularly, this is almost a linear curve up to 70%, but after 70%, it is drastically increased. That's why early research says that this curve is a linear one, but nowadays people are saying this curve is not a linear one. So you have to focus on the utilization value in between 72% to 100% in order to propose a good energy efficient algorithm. So if you see 0% to 20%, the utilization is smallest, very less. So generally we consider whenever we are not using any resources or we are in the ideal state, then we say that the utilization value is in between 0 to 20%. Like whenever you are, if you are not using your mobile phone is fully charged, then you keep the mobile phone somewhere. After 1 month or 2 months, the battery will be gone, right? The whatever the battery power is there, right? 100% is there, battery level is decreased to 0%, right? So such cases are considered as your ideal state. But if you see the 20% to 50% case, it is slightly increased, and 50% to 70% case, it is starting, it is increasing, and 70% it is rising, and 70 to 100% case, it is very increasing in a faster rate, right? So you have to focus on in between 70% to 100% in order to propose a good algorithm. Okay, so based on that, many researchers have divided into different levels. So they consider level 1 and ideal state in between 0% to 20%, right? Although it is divided into 7 levels, 6 level plus 1 ideal level, right? So 20%, first 20%, they consider as an ideal resource, right? And rest 20% to 50%, they are saying level 2, and 50% to 70% level 3. In each and every 10%, they consider another level. So these 4 levels, 3 levels, okay, are represented in red color, because you have to avoid it. Because if you are going to this particular level 70 to 100%, whatever power consumed, that will be drastically increased. So you can go up to 70%. After that, you will try to avoid it. So how to avoid it? Before that, how they are proposing the formula? So initially they consume alpha watts per second. Okay, if you are in the ideal state, you are consuming alpha watts per second. Like I told you, your battery is 100%. Let's say after 100 days, okay, if your mobile phone is in standby mode, after 100 days, your battery will be 0%, right? 100 to 0%. So in each day, you are consuming 1%, right? Means your mobile is consuming 1%. So that can be considered an ideal state. Ideal state means we have constant watts per second. That's why we are representing alpha watts per second, right? And whenever it is increased from 0% to 20%, okay, or you are using very less, okay, you are using very less of your resources. So suppose you are only listening a particular music, so the energy consumed is, let's say, very less, 0 to 20%. So we are adding a factor beta, and beta plus alpha watts per second, where alpha watt second is for your ideal resources, plus beta factor is added if the utilization values are in between 0 to 20%. Similarly, if you go for 20 to 50%, I told you this is here the energy is consumed in a very small rate, right? Now here energy started in a little bit more, right? It is greater than this small, right? Okay, so if you see here, we are multiplying a factor 3 beta, right? If the utilization of a particular resource is in between 20% to 50%, then 3 beta is consumed, right? In addition to your alpha watts per second in the ideal state. Similarly, 50% to 70%, they multiplied with a factor of 5. 70% to 80%, this factor is 8. 80 to 90%, this factor is 11. 90 to 100 is 12. So what we can observe here, as you are increasing the utilization value, the factor whatever we are multiplying, that factor is more, right? So imagine in the 70% case, your formula is 5 beta for alpha, 5 beta plus alpha watts per second, where alpha watts per second is for your ideal state, 5 beta is for the utilization between 50% to 70%. It is increased almost 2.5 times. Okay, if it is the utilization value, you are increasing up to 100%. That's why you have to concentrate on 70% to 90% to utilization in order to develop a good resource utilization algorithm. Okay, so now let us take a very small example so that people can understand how scheduling algorithms can be applied if you want to interested to work in energy efficient cloud computing. So here I have considered, let's say, 5 tasks, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, right? I have assigned a task ID. I have assigned a arrival time. This time it is reached to particular cloud service provider, and it is taking this processing time. So this is the processing time, means it will take 0 to 20, right? Second task will take 3 to 8. 3 to 8 means 3 to 11. Okay, 3 unit of time it will start, and it will go up to 3 plus 8 unit, because it requires 8 unit from 3. So that's why 3 to 11. Task number 2, it will arrive at 7 unit of time, and it require processing time of 23, right? So how much time it will take? 7 plus 23, that is 30. And how much resource they will utilize? First task will utilize 40% of the utilization. Second task is require 50% of the utilization. Like that, it will go on. So let us see what we did. Initially, I created a virtual machine. So let me show you. After that, I'll show you that solution. I have created a virtual machine, right? So let's say this is 0 unit of time, right? And this is 20 unit of time, right? 0 to 20 unit of time. How much utilization you require for task 0? 40%. That's why I have reserved 40% of a particular resources. This 40% is given to your task number 0. So task 0 is now completed. Now task 1 is coming. Task 1 takes how much time? It will start from 3, and it requires 8 unit of time. 3 plus 8 is 11. So I am giving here 3 unit time to 11 unit time, and it will require how much utilization? 50, right? And I told you already, right? The number of the total utilization is your 100%, not beyond that, right? So already we have consumed 90% of time in between 3 to 11. Now task 1 is completed. Coming to the task 2. Task 2 require how much time? 7, starting from 7 to 23 unit of time. So it will go up to 30, right? 7 to 30. So 7 unit of time, if you check the utilization of this particular resources, 7 unit of time, it is busy for how much time? It is consuming how much utilization? It is consuming 90% of the utilization. And how much utilization is required by task 2? Task 2 require 20%. So if you add 90% with 20%, it is 110%. So it is not possible to assign to this particular virtual machine. So what I am doing, I am creating another virtual machine and I am assigning 7 to 30 unit of time. Okay, 7 to 30 unit of time to 20% of the resources, 7 to 30. So this is the 20% of the resources for task number 2. Coming to task number 3, task number 3 requires arrives at 15. So we will start at 14 unit of time. How much processing time it requires? 10 unit of time. So it will go up to what? 24. Right? It will go up to 14 plus 10. It is 24. So check 14 unit of time. So this particular 50 utilization is over at 11. Right? It will over at 11. So after 11, the utilization factor is only 40%. Right? But if you see in this case, we require another 40%. So we can assign task number 3 to the first machine. Similarly, we can assign, because 14 unit of time is somehow like here, 14 unit of time, only 20% utilization is achieved in the second machine. So we can assign task number 3 to the second machine as well. So now there is a competition, because task number 3, let me write T3, can be assigned to the first machine, can be assigned to the second machine. So now you have to apply a proper resource management policy in order to decide which utilization will be better, which resource if you assign, the energy consumption will be less. Few people are suggesting what? Few people are suggesting, if you assign here, let's say 14 is here, 14 to 30. Suppose I am assigning here. Okay, so 14 to 20, the utilization value is how much? Utilization value is 40%. Right? The total is 40%, but 40 plus 40 it is 80% for the time in between 14 to 20. After 20 up to 30, the utilization is only 40%. Try to understand, don't be confused. Right? 14 to 20, it is overlapping with the first task. Right? That's why the utilization value is 40 plus 40 is 80. After the task 0, over at time 20, the utilization value is 40. So earlier it is 80% for few unit of time. After that it is 40 unit of time. But if you assign here, let's say 14 to 24. Okay, sorry, it is not 30. It is up to 24. Okay. Okay. So suppose you are assigning here, right? 14 to, let's say 24. Right? It will consume 40%. Right? What is the utilization you will achieve? 60%. So highest you have achieved in first machine. So many algorithms says that wherever you are getting 80%, as it is a linear one, if you are considering the factor between the utilization and your energy consumption is a linear one, it is better to choose machine number 1. Right? If another user may say that no, here it is lower utilization is there because it is a non-linear one. Suppose my curve is not linear one, just it is increasing like this. So what I am doing? I am choosing the second machine. So based on that, 2 algorithms are discussed here. So I am not going to the algorithms, right? So you can, whatever I discussed, the same thing is used here in order to decide the same calculation you have to decide in order to say that whether you have to assign the task number 3 to the resource number 1 or resource number 2. So you see this diagram, first we are assigning 40% here, 50% here, task T2, T3. So whenever T3 is coming, T3 can be assigned to R0, T3 can be assigned to R1. But lowest utilization is achieved in this particular resource R1, that is 60%. Okay, if you are, as you know that if you are exceeding 70%, if you are exceeding crossing 70%, then what will happen? It will drastically increase, right? So we will not assign to resource 0 because it is achieving, sometimes it is achieving 80% of the utilization. So we are not assigning to R0, we are going to R1. So here Professor Albert Jumaya proposed 2 algorithms. Okay, at that time they assume that the scale is linear one, not a non-linear one. So what they are calculating, overall I'll tell you this formula, right? So what they are calculating, they are considering how much time you are running alone. Running alone means, let me take a data center, right? A user application is running like this. I am consuming, let's say 40% of the utilization and I am running alone. So you have to estimate that time. It may happen that you are running with parallel with another one. Let's say I'm consuming here 40% and another user, another task is coming which is running parallelly, which is taking another, let's say 40%. So you are running parallel with any other task, right? Or parallel with other task that you have to estimate. So with respect to these factor, they devised one particular formula, right? This formula says that you have to estimate how much time you are running alone, how much time you are running in parallel, and how much time you have to run your application. So based on that, they are applying this formula. This is self-explanatory, so I am leaving this particular slide with I'll give to the organizer, so you can go through. So there is a time constraint, so I have to keep this particular part, right? So if you put in this particular formula, then you will get that which machine is better to dispatch the user task. Here, if you see that in the second algorithm, we are assigning T3, right, to the first resources by assuming that we will switch off the resource R1. R1 is not possible because if you see this particular case, it is 40% and 50% is 90%. I cannot add 20% here because it is 110%. But the basic objective is that if 2-3 resources are running, if we can migrate or if you can transfer this 20% to some other resources, then this R1 can be put in the switch off mode. Okay, so based on that, people have designed the algorithm. So I'm skipping this part. The same thing, whatever we discussed, it is written here. So another, after this particular algorithm, many researchers have suggested that why not, if you are saying that 70% is a 70% where your resources are drastically increased, why not you are putting a threshold value? Okay, so what people are designing here, they are introducing something called CPU utilization threshold. So they introduced a concept called cut. The cut value is fixed as 70%, right? So once you are reaching 70%, you cannot assign more tasks to that particular data center or that particular server or that particular virtual machine. So let us consider there are 3 VCs, right? 3 virtual clusters we have: virtual cluster A, virtual cluster B, virtual cluster C. Okay, they can exchange their resources if it is, let's say, somebody is having, some data center is having more than 70%. So it can migrate the resource from overloaded one to the underloaded one, right? Those who are having more than 70%, they will transfer to below 70%. So that in a mutual understanding, they can execute multiple applications at the same time. So there is some constants we can describe here. So for example, virtual cluster A dispatches a particular task to a particular virtual machine if more than one virtual machine is available. So whenever you want to migrate from one virtual cluster to another virtual cluster, in the second virtual cluster, means another virtual cluster, more than one resources is available. If multiple resources are available, you have to choose one of the virtual machine by applying the best fit strategy, right? For example, you have 3 jobs. A particular student is having 3 jobs: job 1, job 2, job 3. So whichever is giving highest package or whichever is having close to his home, there are many criteria are there. Based on that, the student can choose a particular job. So that is nothing but the best fit strategy. If you have more than one virtual machine in which you can transfer your load, then you decide one of the best strategy. If there is no virtual machine is available, it may happen that none of the virtual machine is available. So what we are doing, virtual cluster 1 will request to other virtual clusters. As you know that we have considered 3 virtual clusters, that is virtual cluster A, B and C. Virtual cluster A can request to virtual cluster C. Virtual cluster A can request to virtual cluster C, right? So that if the resource is available in virtual cluster B and virtual cluster C, then you can execute your application in virtual cluster B, virtual cluster C. So it is same as, suppose I am going to a particular shop, I am asking something, but that product is not available in that shop. So what that shop owner will say, he will say that in the next street another store is there. You go to that store, there you will get this product, right? The same as the second point, right? You are going, as virtual cluster A is not satisfying the request, it is giving that request to some other cluster based upon the availability. There is another 2 conditions. if virtual cluster B and virtual cluster C both are satisfying, both clusters are satisfying your request, so what will happen? So you have to select one of the virtual machine where energy consumption is less, right? Where energy consumption is less means, for example, virtual cluster says that I can execute the task, but my utilization will increase to 60%. Virtual cluster says that my utilization is increased to, let's say, 50%. So obviously virtual cluster C is better. So I am going to assign to virtual cluster C. If none of the virtual cluster is satisfying, let's say whenever virtual cluster A is requesting, it is virtual cluster A is not satisfying because it is having resource limitation. It is requesting virtual cluster B. Virtual cluster B is also not able to satisfy. Virtual cluster C it is requesting. Virtual cluster C is also not satisfying. So what you have to do? It has to violate the cut. Cut means, what is our cut? Our cut is nothing but 70% strategy. It will violate this 70% and assign the request to the particular user. So in this case, the energy consumption will be increased. But as we do not have any other solution to solve this particular problem, finally in the fourth case, we are violating the cut in order to satisfy the request of a particular user. So let us take this example. Here also a set of user requests are there. There are 7 user requests are there. Their arrival time is written. Processing time is also given. CPU utilization is given and data size is given, right? So what you have to do? First you will assign P0 to the first machine. You created a virtual machine. You have assigned task 0. Okay. Then you are assigning task 1, right? So the sum of the utilization is now 60%. In this case, the sum of the utilization is 60%. Then task 3 is coming. Okay, task 2 is coming. So if you assign task 2, you can assign it, right? But 60 plus 40 is your 100, means virtual machine 0 can satisfy your request, but it is violating your concept of cut, right? What is our cut concept? Cut concept says that you should not violate this line, right? That is 70%. So what we are doing, we are creating another virtual machine 1 in which we are assigning task number 2. Now task number 3 is coming, I am assigning. Task number 4 is coming. 4 is asking 60%. When 4 is asking, at that time utilization is 40% plus 30% is 70%. So 70, now it is asking 60%. 70 plus 60 is greater than 100. So it is not satisfying in virtual machine 1. Similarly, if you assign here, it is also 30 plus 30 is 60 plus this 60. It is 120. It is violating. So B0 and B1, virtual machine B0 and virtual machine B1 is not satisfying the condition. Both are not satisfying your condition. So that's why you are bound to create here another virtual machine B2 and assign T4 to that virtual machine. T5 you can assign here, right? Because it is below exactly at 70%. So you can assign. Now this is about virtual cluster A, which is same as our condition what I discussed here, right? Whenever you have more than one virtual machine available, right, you have to choose an appropriate virtual machine. Now let's say whatever the resources are there in virtual cluster A, it is already consumed with these user request, right? So T0, the user request T0 or task T0 to T5, okay, is assigned to cluster A, virtual cluster A, and whatever the resources available in the virtual cluster A, assume that all the resources are consumed by satisfying your cut condition. So next, let's say another task is coming, that is T6. T6 require 50%, right? T6 require 50%. This machine cannot give 50% because minimum utilization is 30, maximum utilization is 60. So 60 plus 50 is violating our 100% constraint, and 50 plus 30 is 80, which is violating our cut constraint. Come to this example. Here it is already 70%, 70-50 is exceeding 100%. So V1 is not satisfied. Come to the V2. Here 60% plus 50% is 110%, so it is not satisfied. So what virtual cluster A will do? Virtual cluster A will send one request to virtual cluster B as well as virtual cluster C. Okay. Virtual cluster B says that I am also executing some of the user requests, but if I will accommodate the T6, so my utilization is exactly, let's say, 70%, right? 70%. Virtual cluster C saying I am not executing any user request, So my utilization is, if I will accommodate T6, my utilization is 50%. So obviously virtual cluster C is satisfied, right? That is our condition number 2. As virtual cluster 2 is satisfied, so I am dispatching the task number 6 to virtual cluster C, which is same as your condition number 2. As we discussed here, if no virtual machine is available in your virtual cluster, so what you have to do? You have to assign your request to some other cluster. If more than one virtual cluster is ready to accommodate, you choose one of them where your energy consumption is less. So that is also satisfying in this case you are satisfying BCB, BCC, right? So you have to choose one of them, BCB or BCC, in order to execute it. Okay. Now come to the last one. For example, now virtual cluster A is requesting T6. Okay, requesting the same example you consider. Virtual cluster A already accommodate task number 0 to task number 5. Right. Whenever task number 6 is coming, it is unable to accommodate. So it is requesting to virtual cluster B. But while it is requesting to the virtual cluster B, all the resources are occupied, right? Some of the resources are also exceeding cut, right, in the virtual cluster B. So virtual cluster B say what it will say, I cannot accommodate task number 6. Now it is requesting virtual cluster C. Virtual cluster C says that that my utilization is exactly the cut value, that is 70%. So I cannot accommodate your request, right? So what you will do? What is the solution? Now the solution is that as it is not satisfied in cluster B and not satisfied in cluster C, it has to violate the cut value in order to satisfy the request T6. So here you see 30%, 50% is 80%, which is more than 70%. So it has to violate. It can accommodate, but energy consumption is more because it is more than 70%. But it will finally satisfy the user request. We'll try to accommodate all the requests below 70%, but if it is practically not possible, finally we have to skip it, right? We have to violate that constraint and accommodate in our own cluster. Okay. So till this, if you have any doubt, you can ask. Okay. Then after I will take another 15 minutes.
Hello, sir.
Please tell me.
Sir, the doubt here is, sir, how are you considering the heat generation by the cooling systems? So is it directly impacted by choosing the VMs like this cluster wise?
No, it is based upon the utilization. It is based
Okay,
upon the
so
utilization.
if we choose the algorithm, then the heat generated by that also will be lowered, right?
If the utilization is low, then heat generated is also less.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Any other question? Please ask. Now 63 people have joined, so it is good in number, right? So any other question? Please ask. Otherwise, I'll continue another 15 minutes. Yes,
Any
yes.
question from participant side, please ask any kind of the question. Otherwise, after 15 minutes, we will open question answering session. So you can put general query.
So we'll continue if there is no question.
Yeah, you can continue. So after 15 minutes, we will open a general question answering session. So that participant will ask, I hope they will ask question.
Okay. So as there is a 15 minute of time, right? So I'll focus on now what kind of research people are doing in energy efficient cloud computing, right? So now people are using renewable energy, right? Whatever, if you see in the previous case, whatever algorithm we discussed today in the first morning, this 1 hour. So these algorithms are nothing but our non-renewable algorithms, right? Because in order to run a particular data center, okay, if you see the data centers are using non-renewable resources to run the resources, right? That you can see this particular slide. So as you know, the data center is placed in a centralized location, right? So it is placed in a centralized location to process, store, and distribute the data, user data. And if you consider in all over the world, we have 8.6 million data centers, right? And out of this 8.6 million data center, 3 million data centers are available in US. And in each and every data center, if you see, we have 50,000 to 80,000 servers. And if you see the power consumption of these 50,000 to 80,000 server is 25 to 30 megawatts of power is required to run these many servers. So if you go for one of the report released by NRDC, that is National Resource Defense Council, so they are saying 140 billion kilowatt hour of electricity is required by 2020. By the end of 2020, this much is required. And global data center, if you consider, we require 416 terawatts of electricity per year. So this is not a small quantity, right? So it is not practically possible to run the data center using non-renewable resources. Now I'll focus what is the meaning of this non-renewable resources, right? So non-renewable resources means we are using coal, right? In our home also we are using gas, we are using electricity, right? We are using petroleum or oil, right? So these are the few non-renewable energy resources is used. We generally refer it by fossil fuel, right? So these fossil fuels are used to run the data center, right? And you know, day by day, coal or gas or petroleum or fossil fuel, these are these will be over by another decade, one decade or 2 decades. After that, these resources may not be available because these resources are non-renewable resources, right? And these resources, these non-renewable resources also generates or emits carbon dioxide, generates particles and heat, which is harmful to our environment. So what is the solution? You have to use the renewable resources, right? Renewable resources means the resources which will be not end after a decade or after a 2 decades or after 5 decades, right? It will never end, right? For example, solar is there. One of the popular example of renewable energy resources is solar is there. Hydropower is there. Biomass is there. Wind is there. If you can generate, if you can run your data center using these renewable resources, right? Then it will not affect. If you are running this into data center, it will not affect our environment, and it will not also give you as a threat that non-renewable resources will be end by, let's say, 2030 or 2040, right? That's why renewable energy resources are much more popular, and now cloud service providers are very much interested to deploy their application and run that particular application using renewable energy resources without any major focus on the non-renewable energy resources. But now question arises whether these renewable resources will be available each and every day, right? For example, one day rain is there, so I have a solar panel, right? So solar panel or sunlight is not there, right? So how I'll run my data center in that particular day? So you can say by using battery I can run that particular day. But if there is a continuous rain for 1 month, then what you will do? Then there is a problem. That's why many authors suggested that renewable energy sources are a good solution to run the data center, but at the same time you should not ignore non-renewable resources. I mean, both renewable resources and non-renewable resources can be combined, can be used at the same time. So whenever the resources, when there is a climate is good, you can use renewable resources. If there is a scarcity of the renewable resources, then you can go for non-renewable resources. For example, if you see, you can use photovoltaics to convert the sunlight into electricity. You can take wind, okay, so that you can convert the wind energy into electricity. You can consider the hydropower, right, flowing water to generate electricity. You can burn that biomass in order to create steam in order to generate the electricity. So these are the various ways in which you can generate electricity, right? And here in this case, if you are using renewable resources, so your cost is also increased because fossil fuel cost is more and these resources cost is less. Obviously, initially the infrastructure cost will be more if you are using sunlight or hydropower or wind energy or biomass, but gradually this cost will be negotiated. The cost will be properly utilized, right? That's why renewable energy resources is not a replacement of our non-renewable resources because it is not available around the clock. That's why we have to use non-renewable resources as well as renewable resources in order to fulfill the demand of a user. So these are the very good papers. If you see, Professor Rajkumar Bhuiya initiated this problem in 2015 in the form of a load balancing problem. Okay, here the main major focus is you have to maximize the renewable energy consumption. Okay, and minimize the total cost. Cost you have to minimize and renewable resource you have to maximize. So like that, there is some other research papers are there. You can go through it if you follow this particular slide. So this is a typical example in which you can see these are the data center, right? And here there is cloud service provider. Cloud service provider is monitoring these data center, status of these data center, and these data center can be run by renewable resources. This is your renewable resources. If it is not possible or there is a scarcity of resources, renewable resources, then you can take electricity from fossil fuel or in some other mode media like coal, gas, okay, or let's say by some other media where you can generate electricity. That's why renewable resources and non-renewable resources can be combinedly used in order to run the data center. But first priority should be given to the renewable resources. If renewable resources is not available, then you go for non-renewable resources. Okay, so let me tell you an example so that you feel comfortable if you want to work in this particular domain. This is basically whatever proposed in 2015. In addition, we proposed some algorithm afterwards in 2019 and 20. You can follow our papers also. So let us take an example. We have 9 user requests, right? So these user requests are nothing but the applications U1, U2, U3 up to U9. Okay. Start time of user request is given to you. Okay. Start time is 1, 1, 1, 3, 4, 5, 5, 7, 8 respectively. Node. Node means how many virtual machine they need. Okay. You can assume that this node is nothing but our virtual machine. How much virtual machine is required. So if you see, user 1 require 1 virtual machine. However, user 4 require 2 virtual machine. User 9 require 3 virtual machine. Right. And duration of this request, duration means how much time you require 1 resource or 2 resources and 3 resources. For example, U1 case, U1 is require 4 unit of resources. 4 units of time. 4 units of time means, let's say starting with t is equal to 1, t equal to 1, t equal to 2, t equal to 3, t equal to 4. 4 unit of time. Similarly, U4 require 5 unit of time. Somebody require 2 unit of time. Somebody require 3 unit of time. So these 9 requests are mapped to, let us assume that this is mapped to 2 data center. We have 2 choice, data center 1 and data center 2. For the simplicity of this example, you can increase the number of data center, but here we have considered 2 data center in order to clearly tell you what is going on in our research community, right? So for example, first U1 is coming, right? Whenever U1 is coming, you have 2 data center. Data center 1 is there, data center 2 is there. None of the data center is now filled with any job. We initially assume that prior to arrival of user application U1 or user task U1, data center 1 and data center 2 is completely idle, right? So whenever U1 is coming, you can assign to data center 1, data center 2. You follow any strategy, you can assign to data center 1, data center 2 randomly, because it is the first one and you can map to any user request. There is no problem, right? So there is a cost value is written here. Try to understand, some cost values are written here, and some slots are represented in the gray color, some are represented in white color. Note that white color indicates non-renewable energy. Non-renewable energy means brown energy. Brown energy means fossil fuel. Okay. And this gray color indicates renewable energy. Renewable energy means sunlight is renewable energy, or it is called as green energy. So first priority you have to give to renewable energy. If renewable energy is not satisfied, then you have to go for non-renewable energy. So if you see U1, if you are assigning here, whatever U1 require how much time? You are require 4 unit of time, right? 4 unit of time. How much virtual machines required? Only 1 virtual machine is required. That's why I am giving only one virtual machine. If it is asked 2 virtual machine, so there should be U1 here, U1 here, U1 here, and U1 here. So it required 2 virtual machine or 4 unit of time. So similarly, you can assign U1 here, U1 here, U1 here, U1 here also. You can assign to data center 1, you can assign to data center 2. to data center D2, right? So you have to decide, you have to propose an algorithm how efficiently you can map to these two data center in order to minimize the cost, and all the requests should be mapped to these non-renewable energy, not the assigned to renewable energy slots, not the non-renewable energy slots. But it may happen that non-renewable energy slots are used because renewable energy slots are already occupied. So let us take an example so that you will understand. So there is an algorithm. That algorithm name is future aware best fit algorithm. So this future aware best fit algorithm says that you have to assign a user request based upon one factor. What is the factor? The factor is lowest cost. Let us see example. If you understand this example, your idea will be clear. So initially, they assume that 3 user request is already assigned, means initial configuration of the data center is like this. Okay, this is an assumption. Okay, initially you can assume that the data center is having few requests, just like this example, or you can assume that data centers do not have any resources. Totally, they are data centers do not have any user request, that you can assume. So let's say initial configuration is like this, right? Okay, now let me tell you. Okay, now let's say after ABC is already assigned, assume that task number A, task number B, task number C is already assigned. Okay, and after that we have to assign based upon this future aware best fit strategy. So next task is our D, right? D required how much quantity? Quantity is nothing but our virtual machine, right? It required 2 virtual machine. For how much time? It required 5 unit of time. So as you see here, it is written T is equal to 1, T is equal to 2, right? So 1 indicates it is arrived at T is equal to 1. Try to understand. Task number D is assigned, is reached to the system and want to start execution at T is equal to 1. So it will start T is equal to 1. For how much time? Time is 5 unit. How many virtual machines required? 2 virtual machine. So as it requires 5 unit of time, we have to start at T is equal to 1 and will end at T is equal to 5. So that is nothing but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That is nothing but 5. 5 is the period, right? And how much virtual machine you require? 2 virtual machine. That's why now I am assigning 2 virtual machine to task number D. So as C is already occupied here, so I have occupied 2 slot here. As C is occupied here, I have occupied 2 slot here. Here, as there is blank slot, I am occupying D slot here. Okay, D slot here and D slot here. Right? This is possible if you are assigning task number D to data center D2. Similarly, one person say, I will assign task number D to data center D1. If you are assigning data center what D1, A is already assigned, so I am reserving 2 slot here. So this is nothing but T is equal to 1, T is equal to 2, T is equal to 3, T is equal to 4, T is equal to 5. Right? So 2 unit here, 2 virtual machine here, 2 virtual machine here, 2 virtual machine here, and the 2 virtual machine here. Right? Now I have to calculate the cost, because future aware best fit says that you have to calculate the cost in the data center D1 and data center D2. Wherever the cost is minimum, you assign it. So what is the cost? The cost value is this white slot in this particular diagram. White slots indicates renewable energy. Dark slot, in the previous example, it is just the reverse one because of the color effect. So this is called as your non-renewable energy. So if you are using renewable energy, the cost is, let's say, 0. In this example, we assume that if you are using renewable energy, the cost is 0. If you are using non-renewable energy, whatever cost with respect to the slot, that you have to count. So see this example, come to data center 1, D1. So this is a white slot, so value is 0. This is a dark slot, right, or gray slot. Gray means non-renewable energy. So how much I have to pay? 0.3. So I am writing here 0.3. Now come to this here, T equal to 2. T equal to 2 case, both slots are renewal, right? So there is no problem. P equal to 3, both slots are renewal, there is no problem. P4 case, one of the slot is non-renewal. So for that, I have to pay the cost. What is the cost? Cost is 0.2. So I am writing 0.2 here. Okay. P equal to 5 case, both slots are renewal, right? So I'll not pay anything. So total cost incurred in the first data center is 0.5. Come to data center D2. These two slots are renewal, so I will not pay. This slot, first slot is renewal, second slot is non-renewal, so I have to pay 0.3. So I am writing 0.3 here. Third case, both are non-renewal, so no need of cost. Fourth case, P equal to 4 case, both slots are non-renewal. So the cost is 0.3 and 0.3. Right? This 0.3 for first slot, 0.3 for second slot. Fourth case, it is assigned to renewable energy. So what is the cost? 0.9. Total cost incurred in data center D1, if you are going to assign task D, is 0.5 and data center D2 is 0.9, right? So lowest cost is achieved in the data center D1. So finally, we are going to assign to data center D1 and we have to cancel, will not assign to data center D2. So see this example. Now we are assigning to data center 1. So like that, you have to process. In order to get the values. So this is all about our renewable energy resources. So any other question, please ask.
Okay, so Dr. Panda, I think it's about to over or completed.
Yes, it is over. This is the concept. There are so many algorithms are there. If the time constraint is there, so I'll stop here. So let them ask some question, right?
Okay.
And they can follow this slide because step by step I have explained all the procedures. So you will not confuse anywhere. If you are still confused, you can write a mail to me, right? My email ID is there. So I'm sending you the email ID. I'm showing my email ID and contact number. So you can contact me if you are interested in this particular domain.
Okay, so just wait, Dr. Panda, just couple of minutes. So
Yes.
any question from participant side, please, you can ask any kind of the question related to the direction in research of cloud computing, then simulation tools, any other programming model, or your real cloud experimentation. So definitely he will suggest you on which particular cloud you have to choose and what are the importance of the clouds nowadays. So please, I just welcome to all of your participants. Just ask your question.
Hello, sir.
Please tell me.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Sir, I wanted to ask that, sir, which cloud models can be chosen, sir, for these experimental designs? And
This is
secondly,
our
yes, sir,
infrastructure as a service.
infrastructure as a service. And sir, can green networking be employed in this, like the concept of green networking to reduce the energy?
Yes, we are using renewable energy is itself a green energy.
No, sir, for the networking also, like green networking, like energy efficient Ethernet networks.
Yes, you can implement, no problem.
Okay,
I already told you one example that virtual clusters you are mapping from one virtual cluster to another virtual cluster. There
yes, sir.
networking come into picture. We are considering networking bandwidth, right? So there you can implement this approach.
Okay, sir.
Any other guys, please, you can ask. Yeah, I think Monica Arya, please, you can speak. Okay, so I think nobody want to ask any question. Okay. So it is really very wonderful and great for us, Dr. Sanjay Panda, that you have given your time. So I really thankful for you for giving the insight about the cloud resource management in terms of the how we can spend the energy efficiency and how can increase the green computing both also. So thing is that, so now again I would like to thank you very much. Okay, any your comment, your side, you would like to say anything?
No, it means they can implement these approaches using any standardized tool, or if they can use any programming language like Java, Python, right, to implement these algorithms in their domain. So at least they means the faculty member can encourage their PhD, MTech and BTech student to implement these algorithms to carry out to develop efficient algorithms so that energy consumption can be reduced.
Okay, so for that, I have already shared your Google Scholar profile and LinkedIn profile. So any participant like MTech student and PhD or faculty member want to connect with you, so definitely he can follow you, or he
Okay.
also you can put your email ID on the chat box, so that if anybody is interested to work in this field and want to any kind of the suggestion, so definitely he will connect with you.
Okay, okay. I have shared my email ID in the chat
Okay,
box.
thank you. So, dear participant, next session we will start after 10 to 15 minutes. And in the another session, one of the other faculty member from Bennett University, he will deliver his talk about his research particular areas. Okay. Okay. I think you can see chat window also. Professor Panda, some questions are coming there.
Can you suggest
One of
any
the
research
question I saw.
topics for research student? Yes, the best area nowadays people are working is renewable energy based algorithm. Okay, and another question also raised about heat, right? So people are also working in thermal energy based algorithm. So these two areas you can suggest to your research scholar in order to implement some efficient algorithms. One is renewable energy, another is about this particular area. Any other question, please ask.
Any kind of the question, participant, you can ask, please. Okay, so now we are going to take a 10 minutes break. After that, we will start next session. Again, thank you very much, Dr. Panda. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Gupta.